All right, welcome everybody. It is the City of Fairview Planning Commission. Today is July 28th at 6:30. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. All right. Commissioner Dew,
Here.
Commissioner Mondero,
Here.
Commissioner Williams,
Here.
Commissioner Hooper,
Here.
Commissioner Pearson,
Here.
Commissioner Walters,
Here.
and Chair Holcomb.
Present. Thank you. All right, do we have any citizens wishing to speak on non-agenda items? No? Didn't think so. Okay. Adoption of minutes from February 24th. Right. It's been a while. So has everyone had a chance to read the minutes?
Yeah.
Any comments?
I move that we accept the minutes as written for the February 24th, 2026 commission meeting.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes from February 24th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Okay. Public hearing. The public hearing on ordinance 04-2026 and land use file 2026-22-ZC is called to order. The proposed amendment for discussion this evening is an ordinance amending the City of Fairview zoning map to remove the storefront district overlay from 2 properties zoned town center commercial. The order of business we will follow in conducting this hearing will be A, staff report, B, correspondence, C, public testimony, D, additional staff comments, E, questions from the commission, F, hearing closed, no further testimony from the audience, and then G, discussion by commission and recommendation. Any interested person may present testimony concerning the proposed amendments. 3, testimony. When you come to the podium, please state your name and mailing address for the record as this hearing is being recorded. At this time, I would like to ask members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing.
So, yes, I do know Jim and Steve. We're in the same business together, and I've met Jim and his wife. And we use different subcontractors for our business that they use for theirs. I'm just making that known. I'm not going to withdraw anything. I have no vested interest in what they're doing.
So you're not in the same business, you do the same work, right?
Right.
Different businesses.
Different businesses in the same industry.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, does any member of the audience wish to challenge any commission members' impartiality? No? Right? City staff will now give us the staff report.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. The item before you is the public hearing for ordinance 4-2026 for the storefront district overlay. For this application, it will remove the storefront district overlay from 2 properties addressed as 20901 and 20925 Northeast Halsey Street. This amendment will not change the existing underlying zoning, which is town center commercial, nor will it include any new development on the properties. At the time, if a development application comes in, it'll follow the appropriate procedure and noticing requirements at that time. The applicable criteria was used as FMC 19.205 amendments, 19.413 type 4 procedures, 19.470 land use district map and text amendments. For the notices, notice was posted in the Outlook on July 15th. We were required to do a 35-day notice to the Department of Land Conservation and Development and Metro on June 23rd. Neither of them replied with any comments on this application. Notices were mailed out to property owners within 250 feet of both properties, and we did receive one public comment from the Raised Meadow HOA that I had sent over yesterday. So some background on the site. So as I mentioned earlier, it is for two properties on Halsey Street near the intersection of Fairview Parkway and Halsey, totaling around 3 acres total. One of the lots is just over half an acre and has a single unit dwelling on it currently. The second lot is undeveloped and is about 2.5 acres in size. Both of the properties are zoned for that town center commercial. That allows kind of a variety of commercial uses and also residential uses, but it excludes new single unit dwellings and zero lot line housing. So primarily for middle housing types as well as multi-use or multi-unit housing. The applicant's requesting to remove that overlay due to experiencing some difficulties with developer interest in that site due to the requirement to provide commercial uses, and I'll kind of go over some of that later. So here's a map of the site. You can see it's located at the northwest corner of Fairview Parkway and Halsey Street. So the red outline of the larger vertical lot is the larger of the two lots, and then the lot to the west it's a smaller lot, that's the one that has a single unit home on it currently. The storefront district overlay is shown in that hatched darker red color. So that's essentially what would be removed. The darker red hatched area also extends to the east along the property that's adjacent to Fairview Parkway, but that is not a part of this application. Additionally, it also is on the properties to the south of Halsey Street as well. So this overlay was implemented in 2022 as part of a larger code project that was done through the main streets on Halsey, including Wood Village and Troutdale, who'd also adopted their own similar standards for this area. This overlay replaced a housing limitation in the entire town center commercial zone. So there's a few lots, and I have a map of this on the next slide that show that there's some lots that are included in the town center that are not within this overlay. So this applies to the 5 lots west of Fairview Parkway, as well as the majority of them you can see in the darker gray that are kind of surrounding that intersection of 223rd and Halsey, and then going towards the village as well. So areas circled in blue are the remainder of the lots that are also zoned town center commercial, but are outside of that overlay. You can see notably towards the east, it includes the charter school, the vacant lot between the substation and the Ukrainian church, and that's also included within that. Prior to the overlay being implemented, the ground floor residential restriction was on every town center commercial lot. It was removed. This overlay was put in place near intersections where it felt that it was appropriate to restrict ground floor residential uses, and left the ones that were kind of more on the fringe to allow for a more flexible amount of residential use on the first floor. So this overlay particularly includes, so any new development in here, there's additional design standards that are required for any new development in this site. It limits ground floor residential uses to no more than 50% of the entire frontage of the site. And also the commercial component, so it requires you either have 1,000 square feet of commercial enclosed traditional commercial space, a food cart pod, or a micro retail pod with at least 3 small retail units on site. So by removing that, the permitted uses won't change. It just removes that use requirement along with the additional design requirements that are specific to the overlay. There's still design requirements for the overall town center commercial, but just the additional ones will not be included. So going through these applicable statewide planning goals, the first goal is the citizen involvement. This is just the noticing requirements that we've went through earlier as far as posting in the paper and the adjacent property owners. It's meeting planning goal 10 for housing. While housing is permitted in this, it is required to be in conjunction with the commercial uses. By removing that overlay, it just does become a little more flexible and more viable for developers to produce housing on that site. Going through some of our comprehensive plan policies, community building policy 3 basically talks about that the zoning district should continue to support a mix of uses. So the zoning district, since it does have both commercial and residential uses allowed outright currently, this amendment still meets that policy because the overall zoning district isn't changing. You're still able to build commercial and residential on the site, you're just not required to. The second one is related to housing again and related to increasing new residential development in the city. The property has remained vacant, and through the narrative and application from the property owner have cited that economic conditions and demand in the area have just made commercial uses less viable for development, and they got to be included with the housing component of the site. You can see in one of their exhibits, they included some information as far as the other developments that were closer to 223rd that were developed under the same overlay that included ground floor commercial uses, and was able to cite that while the vacancy for the residential units remains very low, the vacancy on the commercial uses is almost completely open, and they've struggled to kind of attract any sort of tenants for those uses. So a lot of the developer interest is not penciling out with a requirement to provide commercial on the ground floor. So going over the chapter that relates to the amendments themselves, the first criteria talks about the amendment not interfering with the livability, development, or value of other land in the vicinity. So there's 5 total properties west of Fairview Parkway that are within that overlay. As I had mentioned earlier, one is already developed with a single unit, the other one is vacant. All of the other properties west of Fairview Parkway are residentially zoned or zoned residential with a school overlay on it. Just had mentioned, it makes the development of the site more viable, makes housing production more of a possibility for someone to come in and produce housing on the site with removal of that commercial use. And the other amendment criteria is that it's not going to be detrimental to the general interests of the community. These properties are generally pretty isolated from other commercial uses. Most of our commercial activity begins east of Fairview Parkway, and west is mostly residential uses. Just the location alone kind of would be more difficult to attract tenants to any of those commercial spaces. I think that's evidenced just based off of the vacancy in commercial spaces closer to 223rd and Halsey, where there is more traffic. You would think that that would be a little bit more successful. So this location is even more generally isolated and more residential in nature. This amendment does remove that barrier to increasing housing production in the city. So staff recommends that the commission recommend approval to City Council of this proposed zoning map amendment. And here are the 3 Planning Commission alternatives. And that is the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you. So you mentioned we've received correspondence.
That is correct.
Have we received any other correspondence on this matter?
Not at this time.
Okay. Public testimony. Does anyone wish to speak in support of the amendments? Now's your time. We have one person here. Please state your name and address for the record.
Speak into the microphone.
Good evening, my name is Tracy Brown. My address is 17075 Fur Drive in Sandy. I'm representing the applicant or the owners, and I was the applicant on the project. So I think Alex did a good job summarizing code and criteria. I'd just like to, emphasize a couple of exhibits that we presented with the application regarding the vacancy of those properties kind of closer into what I call the core of this commercial area. That project at Halsey Crossing, right at the corner of Halsey and Northwest, or 223rd. They have 84 apartment units that are about 90% occupied and 3 personal spaces which have never been occupied. They did provide, the owner of that project did provide a letter also in support, exhibit B2. I guess one of the things I'd like to just read from that letter, the apartment itself has been successful, provides much needed housing empty storefronts kind of an added value to the project for the neighborhood. There was also indication that during financing for that project, the lender did not assign any value to that commercial spaces because they didn't expect them to necessarily generate income, unfortunately. So, you know, that was a little bit surprising to me in a sense, but that's, you know, from the owner of the property at financing. So they had to make the financing work just based on the apartments themselves rather than generating income from the commercial. That project at Northbrook Village on the other side of Halsey, 180 units. I think there was a kind of a nail salon in there for a while, I believe, but that's now, all those units are now vacated. So there's 4 commercial spaces that don't have anybody in them. And then right across the street, the block 219 apartments, there's only 9 apartments there, but with 3 commercial spaces. And so when I walk down the street, it looks nice, but those are just occupied by storage. There's nobody in those spaces, unfortunately. We did a little bit of a survey in the village itself, and there's a number of other vacancies as well. So our argument is that, you know, this property is really removed from that core area, about 1,900 feet from the western edge of the core area to these properties. And so the viability of the core properties is limited. The viability of this property out here is going to be even more so. That would be our argument. You know, there was notice that we received a letter very recently, and you know, this letter was from an owner of a property in the Rays subdivision. There wasn't really any concern raised about the criteria for approving the application, so that we didn't feel like this letter was really relevant to the discussion tonight. Talked about parking on that street, and it is a public street, which is controlled by the city. So with that, we feel that it meets the criteria, as Alex pointed out, and I did the narrative, and I feel it can be justified, and we would appreciate your recommendation for support to the city council. If you have any questions for me, I'd like to answer those.
All right, well, we're just gonna go down the list here. Does anyone else wish to speak in support of the amendments?
All right, I'm gonna open my mouth.
Okay, this is in support, right?
This is in support.
Okay, please state your name and address into the microphone for.
My name is William Taylor. I live in Race Meadows, have been for 26 years now. And I thought the overlay was just going to be removed and that would just change everything to residential. I guess I didn't read the letter well enough to understand all the rules and regulations. Personally, living in Race Meadows the last quarter of my life, I'd like to see that become just residential area. And having any commercial buildings in that area, I don't think would add to the livability of my neighborhood. And it's not necessarily not my backyard type of scenario, but from what I found in my life, people that own their own houses tend to take care of them better. I don't like to see necessarily duplexes go up or large apartment houses go up. I've seen it happen in a previous neighborhood I've lived at, and the quality of life has just gone down from there. Just due to the fact that, you know, the Section 8 that lives in there, or whatever type of people want to live in that area, just really hasn't been a good influence on my quality of life in those neighborhoods. So in that area, for me personally, living in the area, no commercial. You know, I wanna see, you guys already have your, food cart thing going on. Great, keep it there, it's not in a residential area. I don't need a food cart at the end of my block. You know, my wife's a good cook, I can, you know, eat at home. So that type of stuff, just, you know, don't even propose it. Leave it all, you know, single family dwellings, great.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in support of the amendments? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the amendments? Is there any further testimony or any further questions from the audience? No? All right. Staff comments. Does the staff have anything to add which specifically addresses a question or comment raised during the testimony?
Not at this time.
All right. Questions of clarification. Does any member of the commission have any questions regarding clarification of the testimony to this point? If there are no further questions, I will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Anyone? Questions? Questions? I'm curious, what again is allowed in the zone, town center commercial? Like which forms of residential specifically are allowed there?
So it's anything from our middle housing types, so your duplexes, tris, quads, cottage clusters, also allows townhomes, and then multi-unit residential are the permitted uses for residential.
Okay, so single-family residential is not permitted?
Not permitted, it's only for existing single unit that's already currently there, but it's nothing new.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
That's the way it is now.
Yes,
Okay.
Correct.
okay. Any other questions?
Sorry, and I'll just note that, the permitted uses and single family being allowed only as an existing dwelling has been the way the code is since, for over 20 years.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Question. So if I understand this correctly, then the only thing that's gonna be there, putting words maybe in their mouth, is multifamily. Correct?
You're still able to do other types of housing, not strictly multifamily, townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, things like that, but just not single unit detached dwellings.
So it was potential for having a 85 unit apartment complex, correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Under the-
I'll just list some of the other permitted uses, so you still can do commercial. You can also have places of worship, clubs, lodges, government offices and facilities, libraries, museums, community centers, concert halls, and similar, parking garages, private utilities, parks and recreation facilities, schools, special district facilities, entertainment uses, hotels, motels, medical and dental offices, a variety of different commercial office, personal and professional uses, retail trade, food carts, light manufacturing is a conditional use. And there are a few other things that are conditional uses in the zoning district as well.
Thank you. Yes, so any of those things could go there. We're just not requiring that 50%, the amendment would not make sure that we cannot require 50% of the ground floor be commercial.
That's the only thing that changes?
Yeah, what the amendment essentially is just removing that requirement that you have to provide commercial uses on the space. If a developer wanted to use any portion of it for commercial and residential and using some of the permitted types, they're allowed to do that still. This just does not require them to do so.
And then the only other change that kind of goes along with it that Alex went over in the presentation is there are certain design standards that have kind of a higher level of pedestrian-oriented storefront commercial requirement, and those wouldn't be required. So for example, there's, let's see, sorry, I need to pull up the right table here. So percentage of ground floor windows would be less, let's see, less sort of like awnings, canopies for weather protection for pedestrians. And then you wouldn't be required to do a pedestrian plaza or have exterior lighting. So again, just kind of taking away sort of the commercial storefront requirements in terms of design.
Awesome. Any other questions pop up?
I have a question.
All right.
Just wondering what percentage of the,
Into the microphone again. Thank you, sir.
just kind of wondering what the percentage of the commercial properties that you guys have already put in Wood Village, Troutdale, Fairview area, what percentage of those facilities are actually rented or actually operating as a commercial facility? Because I walked here just to get a good
Right.
view of what was going on. There seems to be a lot of empty places that should be filled up full of businesses, but aren't.
Right. Alex covered that.
But if I remember right, about 34% is vacant in Portland. So it kind of makes me wonder
Yeah.
why you guys want to push for commercial buildings when they don't pan out or haven't been panning out,
That's,
especially in today's economy.
Alex did cover the percentage in the presentation of the staff report, but that's a good question. Does anybody remember?
I mean, I guess I would just say that the zoning, the town center commercial zoning was put in place in 2003. At that time, the code was put in place with a real vision for having a mixed-use town center. This area is considered a town center designated by the kind of regional land use system. And I think there are a variety of reasons why the commercial spaces that have been built haven't been filled. And it's, a combination of the extent to which they've been finished and are tenant ready, to the way that they've been marketed, to just the fact that, even ground floor is struggling in Portland. And so this is an area where there's, I think, less of a concentration or a density of population. And some of it just, it was slow to get filled in Wood Village, for example, at 238th and Halsey as well. It took a long time to get filled. So that we're sort of, trending behind. So I think the request to create more flexibility and not require the commercial, let the market drive it, is in alignment with the reality we're seeing with vacant ground floor commercial spaces.
Point of clarification. In the zoning that's there right now, it's been mentioned that it wasn't single family, and that there's been comments about multifamily. It's single family attached, which is still single family, and this is kind of this overlay with the, what's the zoning in the state?
Middle housing?
Yeah, middle housing, that's what's driven it to where we can only do attached single family, but there's still a property line, it's still a single family residence, it's not multifamily. That there's a distinction there, and I just want to make sure that the clarification is there amongst us, so we understand that that property is zoned single family attached. A cottage cluster is a single-family home, albeit very small, but it's in a cottage cluster fashion. So it's still there in this one. We're not changing that in whatever we do.
Thank you, Roger. Anyone else?
Keep that gentleman. Sir, did you have a question? Blue shirt in the back. Blue shirt in the back, you raised your hand, didn't you?
Garth wants to know.
I think the shield in his eyes.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
He's
It's
fixing
that
it.
time of year. Yeah, okay. Any, let's see, where are we at?
Well, then, can I ask a question?
Ask a question.
So yes, for who, the gentleman that was representative, and what their plans are. Do we know what their plans are? When they came to the city, did they say, well, we're gonna build?
Well, they don't have plans yet.
No, they don't, because they still don't have financing or whatever the case may be. Is that the case?
I'm gonna come up and try to answer that.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, this is Tracy Brown. Yeah, at this point, I've only been hired to assist with the zone change, map amendment. We haven't talked about any future development plans. So that would be a whole another.
Application, right. Okay, thank you. I'm just kind of curious, they had something in the pipeline.
Fair question. Any other questions? No? I see a lot of heads being shaken, so shall we move on? Yeah? Okay. Well, if everybody has had all of their questions heard, then we will close the hearing. The public testimony portion of the hearing is now closed. Oh, now. Sorry, it's been a while since we've done this. Okay. So is there discussion by the commission?
Comments? Comments?
Well, I mean, 2022 wasn't that long ago when we added the storefront overlay. So,
That was was it 2022 or 2003?
I can jump in just with some clarification on the history. So the town center commercial zone and those zoning standards, that was adopted in 2003. And then in 2022, the city did a significant update to the zoning code. And at that time, the requirement that was in the town center commercial district that Alex mentioned, which was a limitation on ground floor residential uses. Was so 50% was the maximum amount of frontage you could have with ground floor residential in the town center commercial zone prior to 2022. In 2022, the code update put that requirement essentially into this storefront district. Along with some of the additional design standards so that we could apply it to different properties and then lift that requirement from other places within the zoning district. So that was sort of the distinction. And I'll just add one more thing, that at that time in 2022, the city was really focused on creating a development on the northeast corner of Fairview Parkway and Halsey to serve as sort of a multimodal transit hub and gorge shuttle, potentially with park facilities and a roundabout. So it was envisioned to have more of a center of activity and tourism at that intersection, which turned out to not really be feasible based on the constraints from the utilities on that property. So that was one thing that I think informed the desire to create more ground floor commercial development to the west of Fairview Parkway.
all right, thank you for being our memory for us. All right, well,
I have a question for Sarah, Alex. How successful did Wood Village and Troutdale been? Because that Halsey corridor has the same requirements, correct? If I'm remembering correctly, all three entities went in on development of this GCC code.
I'm gonna have to reopen the public testimony portion of the hearing.
Well, then I'll be shut up then.
We keep asking questions.
I can respond to the question. I guess I would say there has not been any new development in Wood Village and Troutdale approved since the code update went into effect. Troutdale, in fact, adopted something a little bit different. But for example, when you look at the byway, so that's the development in Wood Village with the ground floor commercial at 238th, apartments behind and commercial up front. And that was approved and developed before the storefront overlay concept went into place.
Thank you. I'll be quiet now.
Steve?
This is not a question as it is information. The plan that the city has had in the past, if it were possible to come to fruition, would have been a good one, in my opinion. It has been a subject of discussion before the city's Economic Development Advisory Committee for years. And it would be good, and still could be, but the economy is something that's impacting it. To be able to build and be able to have the infrastructure to be able to support that could still come to fruition, but at this particular point in time, as been noted, there are many of the mixed use buildings that we've had here with commercial storefronts that, as have been pointed out quite obviously, are not currently occupied. That has been working for Troutdale and Wood Village, and there are some circumstances there that provide a little bit better opportunity for them. Currently, it hasn't been in Fairview. The goal at the time this came into play was to be able to develop a city that had a more vibrant walking population, to be able to live and shop and use these storefronts for a variety of different reasons. If you come down through here, the village here, you just find out that there are a lot of for lease signs out there. Some of them are proposing some new businesses, which would be really, really good for the village area here. Part of the problems that we have is being dictated by the state, and parking is something that is on a limited basis. So if you have a business, you want to have people that be able to run, stop by and go like, gee, I would like to come in there and shop at this place or go to this little restaurant or this boutique. But if they can't find a place to park, it isn't going to happen. The grand plan for having a transit hub on Halsey and Fairview Parkway is still a good idea, but I don't foresee that coming to fruition anytime soon. It would be a solution to the problem. But I just wanted to say, for the benefit of those who are sitting here and for the other members of the commission, that is a good plan, and it could still be a good plan. But under this particular objective of today's meeting is a minor few properties that are, as been mentioned before, are not within the core town center area where we would like to see the business. At some point in the future, if we could ever develop Fairview Parkway into something similar that Troutdale has with 257th and Kane, what Village has with 238th, that would be something to look for in the future. This specific instance with these particular lots probably will not impact the ability to be able to meet a goal that the city council has had for many a decade and can still. So the benefit of the commission and those who are sitting here, we've had a good plan. We're making a minor change at this point to accommodate these particular lots. But bear in mind, a good plan can still come to fruition. It may just take a little bit longer.
Thank you, Steve. I'm getting a little choked up here. Yes, so, does anybody have a motion? Anybody?
Yeah, just comments. This is comments for us, right?
Okay, we're closing the testimony again. So,
Yeah, so this, you know, I'm not gonna apologize, but I like absolutely disagree with everything that you just said. Only because being in the business, having criteria dictated to you by a jurisdiction on a property that you own that you've got to then somehow abide by that. And then, you know, you can't sell it unless you sell the whole building, right? So you have to lease it, which then is a financial burden. So I look at the Village, it's been around for how long? And I drive by here every now and then, I mean, they're all vacant, or not all of them, but I mean, there's a majority of them vacant. If it was gonna work, it would have worked, because this is as close to Troutdale, and I think the part in Troutdale that you're talking about is downtown Troutdale, right? Because there's no other place in Troutdale that has storefront and some residential above it in the Troutdale area, unless I'm wrong, but I think that's the only place that they have it. And I think it works there because it was in existence and there were already storefront shops there that mom and pops had, or new ones came along. But the economic burden on people with property having to build under this criteria, in my opinion, it's a bust, huge bust. And this is what the utopian thought process that goes through, hey, let's do this. This will be a great idea. It's not our money, it's someone else's money. So let's do it. But it doesn't work. And unfortunately, I don't think it ever will, because you're talking, when you pull in a business into that type of existence, you've got a huge cash outflow, or, you know, burden to bring that to pass. I mean, I don't know if you've been involved in that, but I have to a certain degree. It can be just a huge vacuum. And that's why a nail salon can't survive on a property here in Fairview, because it doesn't have the clientele and it doesn't have the draw. But down in Troutdale, where you've got not plenty, but you've got adequate parking, and they've got storefront there, they can do that because it's more of a little bit slower pace there, except for on school days, right there in that Troutdale area. And, you know, I've been down there, I've visited the coffee shops and that, and it's pretty quaint, it's kind of nice, but it doesn't work out here for whatever reason. So I'm just saying that in terms of what you're saying, I disagree in that I don't think it was a good idea. I think that we're finding out that it's not a good idea. In Wood Village, for whatever reason, on that corner, it works. Don't know why.
I can tell you why. Because they have parking.
Yeah.
They have parking. We don't have parking. We've never provided parking for it. The state has compelled us to do less and less parking, providing less parking for whenever we do have development. And I agree with you, we probably won't come to fruition unless we do have like a hub of which to be able to park and have a shuttle. That is a pipe dream in and of itself, and I have to agree with you. I've lived in this city for 13 years, and I've driven up and down this street and hardly ever see anybody occupy these. We have the Heart of Fairview project, which has been put on the back burner here for about another 4 years. That could really help too. Point being is that on the 4+ years that I've sat on the Economic Development Committee, of which we have had business people on that too, they all come to the same agreement. We need parking, and that would feed the commercial end of it. Yes, did we get the cart before the horse when we developed the house and came up with a plan to be able to have all these storefronts filled, and then learn that we can't find enough parking place to have people to get there? Yeah, it's a bad idea. So in context of these two lots that we're going to be addressing here today, yes, it's probably a good idea to remove the commercial storefront, because it's just not going to work there either anytime soon. I'm concerned that maybe the existing buildings that we have that have storefronts may pursue something similar. And if that's the case, we'll have to address those when that time comes. But singularly, the biggest problem we have as a city to be able to develop commercial in the village or anywhere along Halsey is because we don't have the parking.
Russ?
Yeah, I just have a quick question and comment. Part of, for my question is for clarification. Isn't part of what we require as far as retail and living mandated by the state? Or is that strictly a Fairview issue?
In terms of the requirement to include ground floor commercial,
Yeah,
that is not a state requirement.
okay, that's just a city requirement?
Metro,
That's correct.
is Metro,
That is correct. It is intended to be a mixed-use district because it is a town center. So the idea is within the zone, within the area, that you have a mix of different uses, so that you can, walk, you have more supportive, businesses in terms of having it close to your residence. But it's not as prescriptive as some of the more recent state rules regarding housing.
Okay, that clarifies that, but I've been on the committee for quite a while, and I've always argued against the retail living part of it, mainly because of the fact that what's required for square foot, you can't have anything to speak of any consequence for retail in that. Again, I hate to use this comment again because I've used it so many times over the years, but zombie storefronts, because they're not big enough to support a business. But, and that's an argument for another day, but.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Guards?
Sarah, is there any data on what percentage in the metro area of these ground floor units, storefront units, what percentage of them are occupied at a significant rate? As I drive along a lot of places, and I see a lot of that stuff empty.
There is some data. I don't know the number off the top of my head. But, as we know that it's, it is increased, during, the
COVID.
pandemic. It was difficult for, retail as shopping patterns have changed, and things have shifted more to online, things have changed. But so I don't know exactly what that percentage is, but, there's certainly still a lot, and there are concentrations of it in different areas of every city. But there is a lot of vacancy. And the same thing with light industrial, large buildings, there are lots of vacancies there too. So, hopefully there'll be demand to infill into those existing buildings in the future. But it is a challenge with the market today.
Thank you.
Well, we have opened a huge can of worms, talking about parking and everything. But do I hear a motion, or do we need to still discuss things?
I'll make a motion that we do option one.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend city council adoption of ordinance 04-2026. Shall we do a roll call?
Sounds good. Commissioner Dew,
Yes.
Commissioner Mondaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yeah.
Commissioner Hooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Aye.
Commissioner Walters,
Yes.
and Chair Holcomb.
Yes. All right. Approve, or we will be recommending city council adoption. Thank you, everybody, for the testimony. All right. Tentative agenda. Do we have anything coming up?
Yes. We do. Okay, so coming up, the next meeting is going to be August 25th. And we will have a work session with presentation from a housing planner with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. So they will be, I've asked them to come and present on legislative changes impacting land use, which are primarily focused on housing, both legislative changes and then the rulemaking process that follows the adoption of new bills. So this will be something that provides the commission with some additional background as we're working to put together some necessary code amendments, that our code is in compliance with the current state rules and it is clear for the public and applicants when they turn to the code, what is allowed and what is required. That will be the focus of August 25th with the work session.
Awesome. Okay, so that's the entire agenda?
Yes, so I think we'll have that presentation and then we'll have additional discussion about code amendments related to those changes. We do not have any land use applications currently that we're reviewing for completeness. I may be segueing into the next agenda item, but I think we talked previously and I had sent some information to the commission about one application that we had received most of, which is for the Fairview Springs property on Halsey Street between the PGE substation and the Ukrainian Bible Church. We still do not have a complete submittal to begin our completeness review process. So that is not in process and heading for a land use review. But I did want to just kind of update the commission on one thing, because I previously in an email update, I had shared that would be coming to the Planning Commission for hearing. Well, under previous rules, that would go to the Planning Commission for hearing. However, Oregon House Bill 4037 was signed by the governor in April and went into effect July 1st, which impacts certain procedures around the review for new housing. So I think that the key thing here is all applications for housing need to be reviewed against clear and objective standards that are not discretionary. Cities can have an option for a discretionary review path, such as having a two-track system where you can choose to follow all clear and objective standards, or you can choose to follow a more discretionary option if you want additional flexibility. But all cities are required to have a clear and objective path, and that is the system that Fairview has right now. All our standards have been developed to be clear and objective. If someone wants to vary from those, there are certain opportunities to get a variance through a city process. And now there are additional opportunities for adjustments that are options that are state mandated at this time. So that requirement has been in place for a number of years, that clear and objective requirement. It has been sort of strengthened and clarified recently. And with this new Housing Bill 4037, the requirement is that local governments cannot require a public hearing for the development of housing that's subject to clear and objective standards. So unless the city had a completely different review track and an applicant opted to go with that, we have to review applications just through an administrative review process, which staff reviews, we write a staff report, we send notice out. Notice is allowed to go to properties within 500 feet of the development if the proposal is for 20 housing units or greater. And that's actually a greater distance than we have in our current code for land use applications. So when there's a public hearing, our code says that we need to send a notification of the hearing to property owners just within 250 feet. So we would have the opportunity to broaden the notification radius for applications, but there wouldn't be a public hearing. There would be an opportunity for notification and for comment, but it wouldn't be coming before the Planning Commission. The other major change is that the opportunity to appeal the staff decision is only going to be available to the applicant. So a member of the public cannot appeal the staff decision up to the Planning Commission, for example, which is how it would currently work for staff level land use decisions. And lastly, the applicant is also allowed to appeal our decision to LUBA. So it really, unfortunately for the Planning Commission, changes the types of land use applications that you will have the opportunity to review. And when the staff person from the Department of Land Conservation and Development attends, you can certainly ask questions about that new rulemaking. But I just wanted to let you know, because we've been talking about certain applications that are under development and that they'll be coming to the Planning Commission for approval, but that is changing as of July 1st of this year.
And that's all based on the governor just signed?
That is based on this, yes, this is based on Senate bill, or House bill, sorry, the House bill that was passed in 2026.
So that's all housing? Or?
Yes, all housing.
Wow.
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 Leave it to this governor.
I guess you don't need us anymore.
Well, I mean, the only thing anybody ever wants to build is housing.
Yeah, so,
Excuse me. I was just thinking while this conversation was going on, we really need to step back because the economy sucks so bad right now that nobody's gonna build anything but housing if they can get finance for that.
Right.
So this whole wonderful plan of having storefronts all up and down Halsey from here to Troutdale is kind of moot point these days. It's gonna take 10 years to get around. So is there a point from a planning commission step, we need to step back and look at what we're gonna do?
Yeah.
Not a-
Maybe like, I don't know if we're required to revise our code X number of years, review it. I know we just went through a whole bunch of changes.
And even when we get code changes that we think we like, then we just drop them in 4 or 6 years.
Right.
yeah,
I'm not in favor of having another 5,500 units of apartments in Fairview.
Right, there's gonna be
Traffic.
a lot of really upset people in the city who are not paying attention when, you know, this thing comes in the mail and they're like, oh, whatever, I don't need to show up for that. And then, you know, boom, building gets built and they're like, hey,
Yeah, because I would be willing to bet you that 99% of the people that live in these apartments don't work here in Fairview. There might be a couple of them that work at Freddy's, but that's it.
No,
Or,
that's probably true.
yeah, well, I mean,
so they could care less.
we better make sure that our code is
Like me.
really the way that we want it. I don't know how else, like, we have any say in anything.
well, there's certainly been a lot of changes that are being enacted at state level that cities need to comply with. So I thought it would be just helpful to have somebody who's much more informed and knowledgeable about the changes that are in process and that have been adopted, speak with you directly so that you can ask questions. And to the question about reviewing the code. I mean, I think that would be at the direction of the city council. However, I will say that the city council budgeted for an economic development specialist, which the city has not had as a dedicated position for many, many years. And so we'll be recruiting for that position because the council really still is interested in trying to fill these vacant ground floor spaces. I know that an alternative would be to allow them to convert to residential uses, but that would be at the policy direction of the city council. I think if they wanted the planning commission and staff to work on code amendments.
Yeah, but that's just a Band-Aid situation anyway. I mean, might be a couple of dozen storefronts between, Northbrook and Fairview Parkway and.
Well, I considered going to that nail salon in Northbrook and they don't have enough parking.
And there was a fire in the residential unit above and there was water damage.
Oh, no.
And so I'm not quite sure what the status is, if they've out completely or if they're intending to reopen.
Wow, that's really disappointing.
Sarah, is there any talk that they would, I guess Fairview doesn't really have a heavy tax on businesses like that, right? So even if they were to give tax breaks for that, it wouldn't really be that much of a significant, decrease.
Yeah, and I think to attract businesses.
Well,
Yeah.
because South Portland does it, and they
Right.
don't attract businesses, so I don't know what the answer is. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got tax breaks over there.
One of the things the Urban Renewal Agency does have a tenant improvement grant program to try and help businesses offset some of the funds for tenant improvements. And the council has discussed making some other changes to the way in which the city provides incentives for new development to ensure that the commercial storefronts can get built out, because even with some assistance from the city in terms of funding, and if the landlord is willing to, contribute, the cost of building out those tenant spaces for businesses still are proving to be beyond what small businesses can afford. We've found businesses running into that in, the last year or so. So I think that's a major challenge. Other areas where you have a completed storefront space, maybe a built-out kitchen, it's so much easier for businesses to locate there because it's sort of ready to go versus the time and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the space ready.
Well, hearsay, a number of years ago when happened with developing the village here, a friend of mine is in the real estate business. It says that the rents were too high for the storefronts here, especially on this street, the street.
Yeah,
And plus the parking killed any idea of building. Because at one time their military was gonna put a recruiter's office here, to my knowledge. This was years and years ago, but there was no parking,
right.
so they passed.
Well, we had that one meeting where a landlord came and they said that they require a 7-year lease for their commercial spaces. I think that's asking too
Unreasonable.
much. I don't know. 7-year leases for a brand new business.
Good luck.
Oregon tax breaks and business friendly are three terms that don't go together.
Yeah.
So I hope that we will be exploring new creative ideas once we get our new staff position on board and can really devote all of their time to this issue.
Are we really, actually, is the council looking at this new position for economic development to actually bear any fruit? There's been more than enough suggestions and time and money spent on consultants and everything else to come up with. But I thought it was a pretty good plan.
But it's the economy.
To fruition. I don't see where they can come up with anything different. That's a personal opinion. If we're just open for discussion at this point.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
There's nothing attracting business here, right? You're either on your way to the mountain or onto the east side, so.
Right, that's why the parking ride was a great idea. Well, that's the tentative agenda. Can we move on to commission staff updates? Does anybody have any updates?
On what?
Well, with respect to the conversation that we were having, sort of, related just a little bit, people online have found out about the, it's not a tax, but it's the fee update, the raising of the fees. People are mad. They're going up from 20-something to $55 fee for.
The time for them to have been mad is when they got the notifications that all this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff, and the budget committee met with absolutely zero input from the community on this.
Years ago, right.
Yeah, so,
The time to complain was years ago,
Yeah.
but now people are mad, and I just wanted to make sure that you all knew, because you might not be in the same groups that I'm in, you know, if you don't live in Fairview. I know the city council is gonna hear about it, but just so you're prepared, that's my update.
That's,
Okay, thank
Because
you.
I like you.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to those who interface with the city council.
I know our HOA is, they even started a new committee to verify our budget, and the big thing is the new fees from the city. And I'm on that committee,
Oh, good.
so I've argued, just like we were saying, the time to complain about it was when you got the first notice. I got the first notice,
Yeah.
and, yeah, I mean, but I know why
Yeah,
the price, our costs are going up. You know, I know the backstory. You know, I don't think the city is communicated properly
right.
as to why these huge, you know, they have a line item in the news saying, you know, cost of sheriff and cost of fire going up.
Right, yes.
End of discussion.
Well, now there's hundreds of comments in the local groups on Facebook, hundreds of negative comments, and 2 counselors speaking up. And, you know, maybe me explaining like, oh, yeah, fire and sheriff's department, but like, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I've argued till I'm blue in the face,
Yeah,
you know, why these increases, and people are saying, well, why are we still having to pay so much? I mean, our HOA fees are high.
right, yeah. So the citizens have to pay more in fees, and we still don't have any businesses in our commercial spaces, and I don't know, I hope that everybody who works for the city is taken care of.
Oh, and if there are suggestions as you're interfacing with community members about how to get the word out, I know the city manager and counselors, budget committee members, and the finance director have done a few, like, showing up in different places in town, which was in the newsletter, to answer questions and talk with people about concerns. I think there's just been, you know, there hasn't been very many people showing up to those. I understand it's hard to, you know, carve out the time and show up in person sometimes in the evenings. But I know.
What I heard were like, the city manager should be fired.
oh, that guy rocks.
He's new, like, yeah, he seems perfectly fine to me. I don't know.
that isn't gonna
He's
solve.
doing what's necessary to be
He's
done.
doing what's necessary, that's absolutely
Yeah,
right.
but the public doesn't know.
Well, see,
Public needs to be more involved.
They,
you 2 are lucky, you get feedback. The only feedback I get is the damn fireworks are too loud and my water tastes terrible.
yeah,
And so you know, if the public works director, I'd be chewing on him right now, because I got neighbors that every time they see me, they say, when they gonna fix the water?
It's Rockwood Water, South Fairview.
Yeah, it's not fair.
I think you're on, I think Commissioner Pearson is on Fairview Water, you're on Rockwood Water, Commissioner Walters. Yeah.
I was like thinking of swimming pool.
Brown
We have
yesterday.
summer water now. My
Yeah.
husband was like, didn't you know we have summer water? And I'm like, what's summer water?
That's like summer
I drink
gas.
the filtered water.
I have a 3-stage thing under my sink and I.
Well, that's what that's where
Amazing
I'm going.
water.
'Cause I'm tired.
Sarah, has anything been done about that adult family lot? Because there's been days where I've seen over a dozen cars parked in the two lots. Where the adult family.
Yes, there was a code enforcement process, and yeah, cars were removed, and we have, documented that they have returned, so yes, it is on our radar, thank you.
Because I see it every day when I pass it, and I count cars.
Yeah.
Because it's unfair. If they can do it, why can't anybody else?
Yes, absolutely. So we're working on some changes to our code enforcement procedures, but how it's set up, we send, we see a violation, we document it with an inspection, we send a letter documenting the violation, we say that we're gonna re-inspect it, generally 10 days later. If there's still a violation, we send an abatement notice, but ultimately, then we have to take the property owner to court if they do not come into compliance. So sometimes it is a long process. And
we like them as a business.
right, so anyhow, we try and sit down and work with people as much as possible, but
I'm happy
it is a
that
process.
they painted their house.
Yeah, they repainted it.
It's nice. It's painted finally. Okay. Any other, that was a good one, thank
That
you.
was my one thing, because it's such a distraction when you're driving down and you see two cars here, and then you see a dozen cars in the other lot.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, I agree.
Thank you.
Any other updates?
Question, 223rd and Townsend, they had that vacant industrial lot at one point. They had a question came before the commission, do we want to have like a semi-tractor trailer parking lot here and stuff? Has anything developed from the property owner on what they might want to do with that?
Digging dirt.
So at the corner of Townsend Way and 223rd, their land use approval has expired. They were proposing to do the warehouse building with the truck parking, but they did not take any action to submit for permit. So they'll need to go back through a land use process. The other property that we were in discussion with regarding truck parking on Sandy Boulevard, and whether they were really just wanting to use it for truck parking. They did come in and had a pre-application meeting with us to look at developing a warehouse building to go along with truck parking. So we reviewed that with them, and I think we're just now waiting to see if they submit a land use application for development. But ultimately the city council's direction, I think, on the question of having parking is if a property owner wants to just have a lot kind of in that Townsend Business Park area, just as truck parking, they should apply to the city to change the code.
All right. Good question. Any others? Do I hear a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We've got several motions to adjourn and a second.
one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Aye.
we're adjourned, thank you.
Thank you, Alex and Sarah.
Between job of the presentation, where do we get?
Yeah, as always.
Thank you.
Highway 30.
Oh, wow.
Between Multnomah and Sonoma Falls.
Oh, wow.
That's the first